Please keep clapping as I bring some very special people back onto the stage. The director of the film, Jennifer Krutz. The co-director and editor, Bill Weber. And of course, the incredible Brad Takei and George Takei. This is a very good start. I'm just going to let you guys know how this Q&A can work. We have microphones in the balcony. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and someone will bring you a microphone. If you're on the floor, you're just going to have to shout it out, and I'm going to repeat it to all of you in the balcony. We have about 30 minutes, and we'd like to get as many questions in as possible. So if I can just remind you to keep the preamble short, and try to keep it to one question each because we want to make sure that we hear from everybody. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'll sort of just start things off. I mean, one of the things that really comes through in the film is that you have a 24/7 job. And you have a 24/7 job. All of you do, right?
We both.
Yeah. How do you manage your work life, your home life? What are the challenges? What are the funny stories, if there are any? And what is it like for the two of you to come in and try and capture that, try to be respectful of that, and try to be honest about what it's like?
You've addressed all four of us. Which one of us?
Well, why don't you guys start first? Why don't the two of you start first, and then we'll talk about you guys.
I recommend that everybody watch To Be Takei, and the answer is in the documentary.
Well, they told us to make it short, keep it short, and you took that to heart, didn't you? So I'm going to take some of your time. It is a 24/7 occupation, and I couldn't do it without him. He makes it possible to do, because I am very disorganized. He is very organized. And when I get up in the morning, I ask Brad, well, what do I do today? And he gives me my marching orders. When I do theater, at the end of each performance, we get notes from the director. But then, when I go home, I get another set of notes from my director. So, it is a 24/7 existence, and thank God I have him.
I would say that, I mean, they're so busy that a lot of times they probably didn't notice we were there because they're always doing something. I mean, I'm sure it's fairly interruptive to have, you know, a camera crew and, you know, just sort of looming around, but, you know. But yeah, they're just always on the go, honestly. And even if they're at home, they're taking a walk or getting ready to do something next. So, you know, we just tried to keep up.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Oh my gosh, we have so many questions. Right there, how about in the white shirt?
Brad, if you lost weight, you look great.
Oh. The question was, Brad, if you lost weight, you look great.
Let me tell you what happened. In November, which is several months ago, Jennifer and Bill, they had total editorial control over To Be Takei. George and I we could make suggestions, but you know, we gave them total editorial freedom. So the first time we saw the film was when it was 99% complete. And when I saw the film for the first time, I saw my face blown up on that big screen, and it was so shocking that I went on a diet. I have lost weight.
£30 plus, and he's working on the next 10.
Is there anybody that I cannot see? Somebody has a microphone in the balcony.
Here in Canada, one of our leading lights, up here in the balcony, the other way, one of our leading lights, David Suzuki, the environmentalist, also went through the experience of internment. I was wondering if you two had ever met, and if so, to what extent were your experience similar, and what extent different with regard to internment?
I have heard about and read about David Suzuki, so I'm aware of who he is. No, we have not met. However, I know about the Japanese-Canadian experience. I have a lot of Canadian friends, and after the war, my aunt, my mother's younger sister, married an English-Canadian. So I'm very aware of what happened to Japanese Canadians here during the Second World War as well. From my impression, I think the Japanese Canadians had it much harsher. For one thing, you have your winters. I mean, you know, some of our, to illustrate with another extreme, 2 of the internment camps were on the desert of Arizona, and that it was blisteringly hot. And, you know, no air conditioning. Our family was first sent to a camp in the swamps of Arkansas. So, you know, that was very uncomfortable, very sultry. And then the next camp we were sent to was in Northern California. And I thought it was cold there, but nothing like what happened to the Japanese Canadians here. The internment was terrible at the core, but the elements made it so much more difficult for Japanese Canadians. The musical that we've developed called Allegiance applies as well to Japanese Canadians, and incidentally, the director of that musical is a Japanese Canadian from Toronto, right here. His name is Stafford Arima.
We have another question on the phone.
Sorry, I hate to whiplash from such a serious question to mine, but this is a question for both George and Jennifer. I was wondering why there was no footage of George's role from the Command & Conquer series, just because I think that it's sort of the embodiment of the post-Sulu Takei, of embodying such a deliberately over-the-top stereotype, yet having such fun with it that, you know, the outtakes from that filming is just as popular as the actual...
Which show was that?
Command & Conquer.
Command & Conquer.
So the question was, why is there no footage from Command & Conquer?
That's that game show. I remember doing it. I'd almost forgotten about it. It's it's taking that stereotype that was objectionable to another and whimsical level, and the times are completely different. I'm sure you had fun with it, as I did. Okay, Jennifer, you take over the rest.
Well, if you look at George's IMDb page, you'll notice that there's a lot of shows and movies that we just couldn't fit into the film. It would just be too long, which is sad because there's many, many great roles that he's done, and many game shows actually. He did a Year of the Dragon, and the Ice Palace. There was even the Newlywed Game, but in England, right? So there's the English version of that, and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
That's not good.
There's another one. There is a game show. But anyway, so, and...
His memory's going.
Well, I've been reviewing. So anyway, so yeah, there's just so much you can't quite fit everything, and so telling the story, we kept to what we felt was the most key to George's story. And sometimes it was heartbreaking to do that, but usually it just seemed really clear to us when we were going and editing. So, but I'm glad you like it, that show.
There are so many questions right here, striped shirt.
Okay, so Star Trek is groundbreaking in many ways, and it's fun to watch, and it's great. They had a multiracial crew, and there are very many good things about it. But it's also pretty campy. And I was wondering whether you think it's actually good.
So for anyone who didn't hear the question, it was, Star Trek is groundbreaking in so many, many ways. But it's also kind of campy. I'm wondering if you think it's good.
Well, they're still making Star Trek movies. There'll be another one coming at you later this year. So there's something good about it. And in 2 more years, in the year 2016, Star Trek is going to be celebrating its 50th birthday. 50 years. So I'm glad you have that critical mind, but I would say 99% of the people like it and they think it's good.
I think we have another one in the balcony.
Well, first of all, I feel really old now.
Why?
50 years? Oh my God. Anyway, I just...
You are a youngster as far as I'm concerned.
But first of all, I want to congratulate all of you. It was fantastic. I didn't have a clue that it would be such a scope of a film. But I have to ask you, how did you manage to, all of you, the filmmakers and you, George, and you, how did you manage to, I forgot your name.
Brad.
Brad, how could I forget? But what struck me was there was so much scope. How did you manage to intertwine your life, your messages, in this documentary, and was there one message? Or was there one single thing that you thought was important to get through? What did you want us to walk away from in this documentary? Okay,
Actually, I'll start with this, and this is one thing that attracted me to the, I mentioned this last night in Q&A, that attracted me to the film, was the romance and the romantic comedy aspect of it. Because it's nice to see a relationship that really functions. And I think the first question tonight even sort of dealt with that, about how George is more disorganized and Brad is more organized, and how they really function, they really support each other in a very loving and a comedic way, and they both have the ability to laugh at each other. And if there's any message that's probably great to get out of this, is that, it normalizes a same-sex couple relationship in a really sort of unique way, but it also has the deeper message of your life being committed for social justice. So, but that through the romantic comedy aspect.
And the other subliminal hidden message is that when you leave the auditorium today, we hope that you thought that you spent 90 minutes being wonderfully entertained. And the subliminal thing is, actually, we know that this film has the potential to reach millions of people because it is entertaining, and then the takeaway message is they're going to learn about passion topics in our lives. The internment of Japanese Americans / Japanese Canadians have the same problem, as well as the fight for equality for LGBT people. So we're really hitting them with important social justice issues, but they think they're being entertained.
The one message that we want all of you to take with you from this film is we have to know people in their full dimension. Because there are many, many issues involved in our lives. My childhood imprisonment behind barbed wires, and that happened because Japanese Americans, American citizens of Japanese ancestry, were stereotyped as inscrutable, devious, cutthroat, and evil, and We looked like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. It was the dehumanization of Japanese Americans that put us in these prison camps with no charges and no trial, no due process. With the LGBT community too, all of the struggles that we've had was primarily based on the stereotypes that people had of gay people. Very extreme, flamboyant, outrageous. And when we discovered that they're human beings, people that we can identify with, then we start changing our view of people. So we need to look at people for who they are, because we share a common ground. Gays and lesbians are children of straight people. So this is an issue for straight people as well. And our societies and our families become better and richer in relationships because we recognize and relate to each other fully as dimension people. People that look different. We live in a diverse society, but that difference is what makes life in a diverse society so much richer and engaging and more fun. And so the message is, we are all sharing a common ground. We breathe the same air. And isn't it wonderful and joyful and sometimes funny that we live in this diverse society?
For Jennifer and Bill, was there a moment when you decided, I am going to make this film? And once you guys have answered that, I wonder what it is about Jennifer and Bill specifically that made you both agree to do it.
Well, let's see, I've been working on this film. It took a little over 3 years to make, and so I was just a long time, original Star Trek fan. I always liked the show. And so then in 2005, when George came out, which obviously a long time later, at age 68, I just was so intrigued and charmed by the way that he related to the media, the way that he was sort of a part of news culture and pop culture, speaking eloquently and sometimes humorously about LGBT civil rights, and just became really interested in George. And I obviously didn't know him, and then read his autobiography, which a large part of that is about the internment, which I just thought, of course I know that history a bit, but was shocked that Mr. Sulu had that experience. And so just started then looking for a documentary that I thought, I'd love to see a documentary, and there wasn't one. So I just suddenly became obsessed and compelled, and wrote a letter to their agent, and was introduced to them not long after that, and fortunately they liked my previous movie, my previous documentary, and kind of got to know each other, and definitely, it took a few months, before we started filming, and took a few months to kind of get to know each other as we were starting to film. And then Bill, I convinced to come on quite a bit later, but that probably spent about a year or so working together, editing. Do you want to talk about?
Don't really have much to add. The only thing I want to add is that I'm really glad Jennifer did convince me to come on, because it's been a real pleasure, and both in working on their story and getting to know the two of them. So, thank you.
And what was it about them that made you both agree to do it?
I'm glad the 90 minutes that you just saw turned out brilliantly and beautifully, because it was total trust in Jennifer, who I'd never met until we started this project together. And I think it was just knowing that George talks a lot to corporations, universities, nonprofit groups about his passion projects, the internment and LGBT equality. But a documentary is the only way to make sure that your theme reaches the potential, as I said, of millions of eyeballs once it gets distributed. So it was kind of just the faith that Jennifer was the right person And it turned out that our faith in her paid off.
There are more questions, I'm sure. Right here in the middle. Yes.
So is William Shatner an art?
Did you say, is William Shatner art?
Arse.
Oh, an arse. Is William Shatner an arse, was the question.
We Americans have to translate for you Canadians.
So William wouldn't have gotten it either.
A lot of things go right over his head.
There's a two-pager up there, I think, probably.
Look who's talking.
Yeah, but he's proud.
Yes, that's right. You have a shining personality. Your question was on Bill Shatner. Well, you know, he is a wonderful actor, first of all. I'll give him that. We're all professional actors, and the rest of us are very professional. You're very good at catching subtleties. And working with the others was a joy. And many of them, all of them, you know, one of the gifts from Star Trek is that my professional colleagues from many decades back are still very good friends of ours. In fact, even better friends. As a matter of fact, our best man at our wedding was Walter Koenig, Chekhov. And we wanted to have a matron of honor. And we asked our very dear friend, but she didn't like the title. She didn't like to be called a matron. I'm going to tell her. He doesn't know about dramatic suspense. She said, if Walter can be called the best man, why can't I be the best lady? And we agreed. And so Nichelle Nichols, Uhura, was our best lady. So, you know, one of the great gifts has been our work colleagues from Star Trek, who have become very good friends. As a matter of fact, next week we're having a screening of To Be Takei, and Leonard will be there, Nichelle will be there, Walter will be there, and we're having a wonderful reunion. Did you get that?
I think we've got another one in the balcony.
Hi, over here. On this side?
Where's here?
Over this side.
Hi. Thank you for coming out. But I have a question actually.
We're both out.
Yeah. Thank you. My question is, when your mom came out to you, how did you feel about that? And when?
Oh.
And my second question is, did your mom actually ever consider getting married? Because she was alive when you guys got married.
I was in high school. I announced to my mother at my age of 16 years old that I'm gay. My mom turned to me and said, well, you know what? I'm a lesbian. And the backstory is my parents divorced when I was 12 years old. And it was based on my mom becoming aware of her sexual orientation. So I'm really glad that Jennifer captured that in the documentary, because it, you know, I don't have words for it, but it just shows how meaningful, how deeply Jennifer and Bill went into George's and my story.
There are more questions. The first plaid shirt right there.
George, when will you next be on the Howard Stern Show? And what can you tell us about Howard that his fans might not know?
The question was, when will you be next on the Howard Stern Show? What can you tell us about Howard that we might not know?
When Howard first asked me to be his excuse me, official announcer, official in quote marks, I said, you know, I would love to have that as a steady gig, but I'm an actor, not an announcer, and I want to continue to pursue my acting career. And so we compromised by doing his show every quarter, every 3 months. I must confess, I have not been too good about it the last few quarters. And so I owe him. So I'll be on very soon. Especially when To Be Takei is ready to be released in the theaters.
Is there anything you can tell us about him that people might not know?
Oh yes, that was 2 questions in 1. You weren't listening to her.
I wasn't listening to me either, I guess.
I'll take that as another innocent question. Howard has this public notoriety, but off mic, he is rather a quiet, soft-spoken, and reticent guy. He doesn't share too much about his own private life, other than the fictional private life that he presents on mic. But he does have a very devoted and loving relationship with Beth. And the other thing that I'm sure you are all aware of, he is a very outspoken supporter of LGBT rights. People think of him as a person that has positions that are outrageous and, you know, off kilter. But Howard is a in fact, he announced that he isn't going to get married to Beth until George and Brad can get married. And sure enough, they didn't get married until after we were married. Howard is a very good, decent guy, and I'm very touched and proud to have him as a friend.
I just want to add one thing to that. Howard doesn't do interviews. He does interviews for all. He basically doesn't do them, but he did one for George, which says a lot about his commitment to George.
Well, but then, you know, Howard doesn't make anything easy. He first said, no, I have a standard operating policy. I won't do interviews. But I can be just as relentless as he can be. So I wheedled, begged, cajoled, and so then he said, well, all right, I'll do it on condition, one condition. It has got to be on the air, and that's the only way I'll do it. I won't do a private interview. It's going to be on the air. And so I reported back to Jennifer as he said he'll do it with that condition. And I think Jennifer was terrified. In fact, you can take it from here.
Yes, I found out, well, it was about a month or even a little less that I got the news, and certainly wasn't going to turn down any interview with Howard Stern, considering how key he is in George's life and reignition of his career. But yeah, I just really studied up on everything about Howard. I watched his movie, I read his books, I talked to people I know who are, just true fans. And I just also, I went there thinking, you just don't try to say no to him, just kind of roll with how it's going and try to be able to laugh at yourself the way George laughs at himself and just go with it rather than trying to, act smarter than him or better than him or anything like that. So it was very nerve-wracking, but honestly, it was a really incredible experience. I'm so glad I got through it. It's incredible footage. Obviously, there's a number of clips of him in the film. So yeah, I'm really, really glad it worked out.
And he paid a rare tribute to Jennifer. He didn't ask her to take her bras off.
Although George did say, are you going to ask her to take her top off?
I did not say, did I do that?
Okay, we have time for one more, maybe two if they're very quick. But let's start with one in the balcony, and then right here, this man waving will be the last one.
Hi, I had a question to George about his experience with the Japanese internment camp. I was wondering, with all the work that you...
Actually, they were Japanese American.
Japanese American, sorry. I was wondering if you guys made any efforts to change the way that the education system is in California, because growing up in North America, you get taught this Anglophone and this colonial history. So I was wondering if you guys, as a team, were able to change the way that they teach us what it is to be North American and not the colonial past in the way that they do.
In California, we have incorporated the internment of Japanese Americans in the school curriculum, but we wanted to spread beyond our California borders. We did the Japanese American National Museum, which we founded, had a joint project with the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. We created 5 exhibits, and they created 3 exhibits on the 2 internment camps that were in Arkansas. And concurrently with that, we worked with their Board of Education and had participation by their educators. And we developed a program where we bring about a dozen teachers during the summer break to the Japanese American National Museum every year and get them to... We didn't want to impose it on them. We wanted the teachers of Arkansas to develop that program. But because they don't have that much material there, they come to the Japanese American National Museum every summer, and they develop the program for Arkansas youngsters. And one thing that really has filled us with pride is it came from the people of Arkansas. In between the 2 camps in Arkansas, Rower and Jerome, is a small town called McGee. McGee's railway station had been abandoned because the train no longer stops there. So they, on their initiative, transformed their railway station into the World War II Japanese American Internment Camp Museum and built a lovely museum. And so now it's put McGee, the city of McGee, on the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce tourist map. And they're getting a lot of tourism traffic there. But the people of Arkansas now have developed their education curriculum to incorporate that history of Arkansas.
Great. Okay, one more very, very briefly.
Hey, we have one of the world's great theater impresarios here in Toronto.
Ed Mirvish.
Well, it's David and his son, actually. Have you, as a matter of fact, he's opening this afternoon, tonight, with David Suchet in The Final Confession. Have you thought about having him see your play? Because he has 3 theaters here in Toronto, and one smaller one, one larger one, actually 4 theaters.
Royal Alex, yes.
Well, the Royal Alex, the Princess of Wales.
Okay, so I have to quickly jump in. We're running out of time. So David Mirvish, wonderful theater impresario in Toronto.
Have you thought of having him see your play?
Have you thought about or tried to get him to see your play?
I'm very familiar with Ed Mirvish, the original Mirvish, as far as theater people are concerned. He is a legend in theater. He also supported the Old Vic in London as well. No, we had not thought of David Mirvish, the current one, but now that you've suggested the idea, when we open in New York, we will invite him. And as a matter of fact, our producer has in the back of his mind putting together a Canadian production, a Toronto production of Allegiance. And as I said a little bit earlier, the director of our production, Allegiance, is a Japanese Canadian from Toronto. And so we have that already on our agenda. But thank you for reminding us about David Murphy.
So a couple things. I wanted to acknowledge that we have our two producers here, Jerry Kim and Mayuran Tiruchelvam, standing on the side in the back. Another thing, if you loved the film or liked it, please be sure to vote for it on your ticket that you got on your way out for the Audience Award. And you can follow the film on Facebook at To Be Takei, and also on Twitter.
And I just want to say thank you to HotDocs for bringing the film out here. And also, again, thank you to the Toronto audiences. You guys are really incredible. And the fact that you have this documentary film theater in town all year round is really, it's groundbreaking. And for documentary filmmakers, this is a grail.
Everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you one more time for Bill Weber, Jennifer Cruz, Brad McKay, George Takei.